Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nitin, the founder of moazo.co.uk, and if you're a regular viewer you would know today's Wednesday, and that can mean only one thing. Yes, you've guessed it. It's Whisky Wednesday. It's our first Whisky Wednesday of 2021. It's our first Whisky Wednesday for a couple of months. So if you've missed this part of the channel, I've missed it too, but we're back and we're going to be trying something pretty interesting today. So make yourself comfortable. If you are in a position to grab yourself a drink, grab one, your drink of choice, be it a tea, coffee, or a whiskey of choice. Put your feet up and let's go through this together. So today we are taking a look at Blackpitts by Teeling, a new addition to the Teeling family, you could say. And if you're not familiar with Teeling, Teeling is an Irish distiller, pretty young. I believe they were established in approximately 2014, and they have been established in 2014, but their heritage runs back around about 350 years, all the way back to one of the first distilleries in Ireland, the Kilbeggan Distillery, and their story is pretty interesting. So here's just a quick ramble on Teeling and how it came about. So you've got Kilbeggan Distillery. Like most distilleries, over time they kind of get, sales dwindle or whatever it is. It basically fell into disrepair and the brand kind of fell away, although there were hundreds of barrels or casks of whiskey maturing at the time. And eventually what happened, the distillery, it's quite an interesting story. The distillery at Kilbeggan eventually turned into a car dealership, I believe, and from a car dealership back into we could say a distillery museum, and eventually a working distillery. Now in that time what's happened is you've had John Teeling. First mention of Teeling. John Teeling comes along and he's already working on his own projects. He's already started with a bunch of other people another distillery known as Kool-Aid. And what Kool-Aid have been doing is producing whiskey that's not traditionally Irish. They have been, rather than producing triple distilled whiskey, they've been producing double distilled whiskey, which is very common for Scotch. So they're a bit of the bad boys on the block, but they're doing well and they're establishing themselves. So what he does, John Teeling, is I believe he buys or somehow manages to obtain all or part of the Kilbeggan distillery, along with anything that was currently maturing. So he sets to work on maturing his own whiskey, the Kool-Aid whiskey brand and the Kilbeggan whiskey brand. Now during that time they're doing really well. They're producing really popular whiskey, the brand's kicking off and they're making lots of money. Good for them. What happens is that it becomes really popular, and the Kool-Aid and Kilbeggan eventually get purchased as one by the Beams or Beams Inc. That's the guys who own Jim Beam, and they purchase Kool-Aid and Kilbeggan as one, and eventually the Kool-Aid name is dropped and it's just the Kilbeggan heritage name is kept and is part of Beam's portfolio. Great way of pumping money into what was a kind of like dead or dying brand, and they've re-established it. Fast forward a few years, the Suntory group eventually buy Beams, and Beams, it becomes, is it Suntory Beams or Beam Suntory? One of those. I'm rushing through this because I want to get to the drinking pot. Basically what's interesting is that Teeling are too young as a group now, in 2014 or in 2020 to be producing their own whiskey. And what makes all this story relevant is that they have access to the stock from the Kool-Aid/Kilbeggan storage, if that makes sense. So they have access to all that heritage whiskey that's been maturing over all of these years through all this entire story in this timeline. And what makes it wonderful is that allows the people behind Teeling to actually hit the ground running and start implementing some modern day ideas of being quite innovative in the realm of whiskey, and that's what makes Teeling so special in the Irish distilling world and in the current distilling world. I mean, right now these guys are winning awards left, right and center, and that's primarily because they release some really clever stuff. They do collaborations with people like Cairo, based out of Finland, which I'll be reviewing shortly as well, and they do some various ideas where they kind of like have a interesting approach with a mix, or you could say, of traditional Irish distilling. And what we're looking at today is one of those, or is a result of, you could say, some of their not so traditional / experimental / heritage kind of experiments. And it will all become clear in a second. So let's just get on with it. Let's take a look at Blackpitts. Grab yourself a drink if you haven't already, and let's get on with it. So this is Blackpitts by Teeling. Let's take a nice close look at the bottle. I love this bottle. I love the kind of like embossing and everything about it. There's one for the old freeze frame. So what I like about this is, firstly, the case, amazing. Let's just take a quick look at the case. I love the case. It's embossed. It's really good looking. It's got a bit of heft to it. The bottle, I mean, it feels heavy. It's a heavy bottle. I haven't had a chance to drink this yet, primarily because I did put a bottle aside for me for Christmas to open with my dad. But I had a customer call me up and he was like, can you get a hold of one for me a little bit last minute before Christmas? And I basically gave him mine. So I've only recently managed to get a hold of a bottle for myself, and we can go through this tasting together. Now, let's just pop this open, and I'll give you an insight as to the story behind Blackpitts and why it's referred to as Blackpitts. I love it. It's such a fabulous name. Now, as far as I understand, the whole Blackpitts story is quite interesting. As far as the heritage is concerned, you've got this massive industrial area, I think it's based out in Dublin, which was famous for smoking all the barley for whiskey distilling purposes, and I believe that eventually died out. But it was a massive industry in Ireland at that moment in time, and this is kind of like a throwback to that in two ways: one, naming it after that region, Blackpitts, and two, being a peated Irish whiskey. Now, if you are familiar with peated whiskey, you have experienced peated whiskey, you know peated whiskey is essentially just smoky whiskey in a simple manner. So don't beat me up if I haven't done it justice. But simply put, peated whiskey is something smoky, and you kind of have to either develop a palate for it, or you just don't like it. That's usually the take on it. And what I found is that my experience with peated whiskey is that sometimes it can come across a bit medicinal, primarily because the smoky edge is so sharp, like it's there, it doesn't really go away, and it only really ever gets more and more peaty. Now, peaty whiskey tends to be very popular, or you could say more volume seems to be produced out in Scotland than it does in Ireland, and I believe Blackpitts is going to change that. What the guys at Teeling have done, though, with this particular release is, rather than go down the Scottish route of just double distilling a peated whiskey and kind of like encouraging that smoky edge, they've actually used a more traditional Irish method of triple distilling. And in theory, and I guess in result, that means that you end up with a less edgy or traditional peated smoky whiskey. So what they've done is they've taken their smoked peated whiskey, taken off the edge by triple distilling it. But then what they've also done is, this is what I like about the guys at Teeling, is that they've continued messing about with it, and they've matured the whiskey in not one but two different casks. One is a white wine Sauternes cask, which when matured in there kind of like brings out fruity notes, and the other is an ex-bourbon cask, which once moved into that maturation phase, it brings out, you could say, these smoky, woody, earthy notes. So it's going to be, I believe, a whiskey with a lot of character, but highly accessible and very, very drinkable. And if you haven't, or if you have had an experience with peated whiskey before and you haven't particularly enjoyed it, this could be a great way to get back into it. So that's my hope, at least. I mean, like I said, peated whiskey can be a bit medicinal, but my guess here is that this one is going to be a lot more palatable because it's going to bring out more sweetness, and rather than smoky ashiness, it's probably going to be more, how to describe it, I don't know, like the scent of smoke that you actually like, rather than the smoke that actually stays up your nostrils, if that makes sense. So without further ado, let's kick off. I'm going to open this bottle. This is my, like I said, I've not had a chance to have this myself yet, so opening it for the first time, pretty excited about it. I do like everything about this bottle as well. I like how we've got all these little details. I like these little details. I'm not sure if you can see that. Look at that, little bits of detail. Let's flick that away a little bit, like, was it Johnny Lawrence? So let's take a look at the bottle again. You can see that, I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's almost like it's screen printed. I like that rough and ready nature of it. See that? I like that. It's flat, screen printed. It's very different from, you could say, the external, the tube, which is all embossed. I love the label is embossed though. I'm not sure if you can see that. Let's see that. Ooh, yeah. Okay, let me see if I can get this on. What a great sound. Oh, that smells nice already. Oh, that really does smell nice. Okay, this is going to be awesome. We already know it. We already know it's going to be awesome. It's just like, is it going to be awesome? Okay. This is my favourite glass. This is a tulip glass on a pewter stem by the guys at Così Tablini. This is, again, I'll leave a link below from where you can get this. And let me just spin this around and get all the branding in place. And just so you know, as usual, none of my videos are sponsored. There is no advertising or sponsorship. This bottle was not sent to me for free or anything like that. This is my own bottle. I spent my own money on it, and everything I do here is basically sponsored by me. So let's just kick off with this. Oh wow! I actually thought it would be a lot more amber than that. Look at that. That looks really nice. Okay, so let me just put this back quick. I'll put that there on my makeshift whiskey shelf. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I did think that it would be a touch more amber than what it is, like a bit more of a rich amber. Let's get this off. But it's light. Look at that. It's light. It's golden. It's I'm not sure if the camera's gonna. There we go. It's light golden. Really. I can smell it. It smells lovely. When I say it smells lovely, I mean it smells appealing. Yeah, it's not as smoky as I thought it would be. Yeah. As far as peated whiskey goes, if we take a look, cast our minds back to the smoky Islay whiskey we had by Port Ascaig in one of our other Whisky Wednesdays or whiskey reviews, that one was super smoky. Like, that is known for their smoking. That was 100% proof as well. This, I believe, is only 46 ABV, and I believe all of Teeling whiskies are 46%, if I'm not mistaken. It is 46. Yeah, they're all 46%. I believe every single blend that comes out from Teeling is 46. So That's something they stick to, and I like that. I like that you know that you can grab a Teeling whiskey. It's going to be 46, making it somewhat palatable. As in, you sometimes when you get a whiskey that's cask strength or anything above 46, you might get a 48, 50 or above. It can be very, very harsh on the tongue initially, especially if you're not used to it. And what that means is that you're not really going to enjoy the flavor profile much. And then there's this kind of like notion of, hey, don't add water, don't add ice. If you do, you're not a big man kind of thing. So you have to add water or ice or whatever to bring out the oils and the flavors. Don't be fooled. So if something does feel super alcoholic or too strong for your palate, just water it down so you can taste the flavors. Now, I'll let this breathe for a bit. Now on my nose, obviously it's smoky, but it's also fruity. There is a bit of fruit in there, yeah. And all, it might sound really strange. I don't know if this is because of the Sauternes cask, but it's got that initial kind of like white wine edge. So the freshness of kind of like green grapes or green apple, not peel, but the flesh of green apple, the innards, the meaty bit, that kind of initial smell, it's there. It's got that wine freshness with a touch of wood and honey, maybe. It's like that, yeah. Again, I try not to read the flavor profiles. I may not have tasted them, but I try to avoid getting too trying to avoid memorizing the profile, because I want to experience this as my own, as my tongue experiences it, rather than what I am expected to experience. And it's just a fun way of kind of like enjoying whiskey. I'm just going to go in for it now. If I do go red, please forgive me. But that, whoa, that is, how to describe it? There's a party on my tongue. Literally, my tongue is sizzling, and it's not doing that because of the. Can you hear the saliva? My mouth just watering. As soon as it hit my tongue, it was like a fruit cake. Very strange. Maybe fruit cakes at the front of my mind because of Christmas, but it was like a raisin fruit cake. And if you don't like raisins, it doesn't mean this tastes like raisins. It just means that it's got that kind of like warm kind of like alcohol, rummy, bourbony edge, which kind of makes sense. But then it's got that kind of like spicy, kind of like Christmas cake, Christmas pudding kind of finish to it. The initial, when it hit the front of my tongue, it was sweet, and as it rolled off, went down the back and kind of like all over the palate, it became more and more spicy, fruity. It was, I don't know what the right term is. It could be, I'll call it Christmas spice, because it's kind of like cinnamon, ginger. It almost feels as if the ginger was kind of like a sweet ginger. You know how you get those candied gingers? It's a bit like that, and a candied fruit, and it's but the image in my mind is the enjoyment, if anyone ever does enjoy Christmas pudding. And the smoke is not what I expected at all. It's even less than I thought it would be. Yes, it's triple distilled, so it's gonna remove that smoky edge, but it's less smoky. It's almost like it's not even about the smoke or the peat. It's not about the peat. To me, it feels like it's more about everything else that's gone on. It's almost like the peat is a second, is not the primary flavor, because it's there and then it's gone, and then you've left with all these kind of like spices and fruits and honey and these kind of like treacly notes, but the smoke is kind of like just hanging around going like, ooh, I'm here but you can't see me kind of thing. It's there, but it's not terrible. It's not overbearing like they can be, or like peated whiskies are engineered to be. It's like, like, get peaty, big peat, all that sort of stuff. So again, let's try this again. See, now on the second taste, because my tongue is now kind of like familiar with it, there's something else, there's something more coming from it. It's almost like, what did I make recently? Like I said, lockdown has been getting me baking again, and cooking, which I really enjoy. And I made a fruit crumble. That's what it was. It was a fruit crumble. But in that fruit crumble, I basically just put in all leftover fruits that I had. And that consisted of apples, bananas, and pears. And that might sound a bit odd in a crumble, but I'm telling you it works. If you haven't tried it, go give it a go. But I digress. It's like those green pears, those green and yellow pears. It's like they've been put on into a pan, and what's the right word? Have they been stewed? Yeah, it's like a stewed pear. Pear. It's got that. It's got that kind of. Pears are very distinctive. It might sound really strange. It's like a banana is super distinctive, right? Like you have a banana, you know you're having a banana. And it's one of those things, if you have a pear, you know you're having a pear. It's just so distinctive. You'd have a little bit of a pear, you're like, that's a pear. That's what's happening here. There is a very strong kind of like stewed pear note. And when pears are stewed, they just become even more sweeter. They get slightly more caramelized. We've got all of that coming through. You know what? Yeah, this is neat as well. It's sweet, it's tasty. And I know it sounds like a bit of a cop-out. It's tasty. It's actually tasty, which is what's interesting. It's not alcohol-y, if that makes sense. It's not overbearing in its presence. It's almost like you could sip this quite easily and just chill. There's nothing arrogant about it. There's nothing it's not super bold. It's not here to make a statement. It's not trying to outpace, outclass, or do anything. It's just saying, hey, check me out. I think I'm tasty. And you go, I'll give you a go, and you go, damn, you are tasty. Tasty. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some water to this. And the whole idea of adding water, like I alluded to it earlier, is that when you add water to whiskey, and please do not be afraid of doing this, when you add water to your whiskey, all it does is that it releases the oils for the other flavors to come to the surface. And that's the whole idea of having a whiskey. Let's enjoy it for the flavor profile, and let's kind of be a little bit snobby about it and figure out what's going on with this. And if you get to kind of like find any of the notes and the characters as defined by the distiller, then it's fun. So let's do that. I've got some water here somewhere. There you are. Let's get this, and let's pour some water in here. Now that could be considered a lot of water for some. For me, I'm doing it as a bit of exaggeration because I want to know what goes on, what happens. I'm not sure if you can see this now, but there's all the oils are coming out. They're all separating. And what that means is that the oil is binding to the minerals, and the minerals, some will go to the bottom, some will come to the top, some will become more accessible to the palate. You know what? It does smell like a glass of white wine. It does. And it's not, even though it's smoky, it's got a white wine edge. I don't know if that's even a thing, but if you didn't know it was a whiskey, someone gave this to you, and it's like, here you go, here's a little bit of wine to try. Before you tried it and you smelled it, you would go, oh, that's a really smoky white wine. That's really nice. It smells of, like, you know, cooked apples and cooked pears and stuff, like white wines tend to. Oh geez, that just became even sweeter. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of that, because that just went from being kind of like I said, it went from being it's turned into more of a sweet wine. Very strange, but that's what it feels like right now. That's caught me off guard a little bit, actually, because I don't know, I just thought it would be I didn't think it would, the water would bring out so much sweetness. It is sweet. And if you like your sweet whiskies, or you are you are partial to a whiskey that's leaning on the dessert side, this with a bit of water, and you may not agree with me, but is definitely sweeter with water. That sweetness has come to the surface, and it is basically, to me at least, it has fallen into the honey spectrum. It's definitely got honeyish. That sweetness stays, it lingers. At the top you can feel the smokiness, but on the palate at the back, that's all sugar and sweet. So that kind of like spicy side of things, it's kind of been subdued, but the sugar sweet honeyness, the I was going to say watermelon, it's not watermelon, it's like honey melon, it's kind of come to the surface, and it's not bad. I like it. I don't like it, I have to admit, I don't like it as much as I like the more of the alcohol kind of side. I think I like it more without water, and what that tells me is that I will enjoy this whiskey neat. I would enjoy it with a cube of ice, because the ice would melt slowly, so releasing that sweetness over time. Let's put that down. Awkward hand movement. Okay, so that said, there you go. That is Whisky Wednesday. The first one, 2021. We have just tried Blackpitts by Teeling from Ireland. Triple distilled peated whiskey, something new, something interesting by the guys at Teeling. Now, if you have tried Blackpitts, what were your thoughts? What was your experience like? Was it similar to mine? If you haven't tried it, are you interested? Leave your comments and thoughts below. If you have had a drink while watching this, then tell me what you were drinking. I'll be really interested to know. If you have any suggestions on Whisky Wednesdays, on things you'd like me to try, please feel free to leave a comment below. If you aren't subscribed, hit subscribe. If you are not in the mood to subscribe, if you're one of my almost 20,000 views that I get on some of the videos, if you are one of those guys and girls, you don't want to subscribe but you want to watch, all I ask you to do is hit the like. In English we usually call that give it the plum, and that's all I ask. It really helps me out. So outside of that, Whisky Wednesday 2021, first one done. I'll see you on Friday for Fragrance Friday. Have a wonderful week. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you again. Bye bye.